Woo, getting rough. Okay. You need your notes and a Bible. Open up to Genesis 2. Use your iPad for today. You're killing me. Use your iPad, it's fine. It's the wrong one. There it is. Okay, so we're talking about Thomas Hobbes. We want to continue the conversation with Hobbes. What's up? And I had video content created for this. And then I went to listen to it yesterday morning and realized that the audio was horrifically bad. And so I had to take down the video. So we're going to talk about it today, which means you got more time yesterday to work on your stuff, which I assume is good for you. So let's see here. We're talking Thomas Hobbes. Mr. Hobbes. Okay. Wrong one. I mean, still a valid Hobbes, just not the one that we want to talk about in here. Somebody read for us Genesis 2, verse 7. Anybody? Go ahead. Thanks, Mike.
Then the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being.
Yay! Okay, so in Hobbes' ontology here, we want to talk about the nature of what it is to be human. And Hobbes, being the good Christian that he is, takes his cues from Genesis chapter 2. So, I ask you this. What is this breath of life? Or better yet, what was Adam prior to breath of life? Dirt. Okay? Even shaped as the human person, he's still just dirt. Not a statement, question.
I think so.
I like how all I have to do is ask a question and then people are like, wait, hold on. Now I'm not so sure anymore.
I think that's what the verse said.
Okay. Is he a living being prior to breath of life? No, so he's just a big lump of dirt. Okay, good. Does somebody's translation read something other than living being or living creature? No? Okay. You're all on the same site using the same thing. So, all right, same default setting. There are translations that will say he became a, quote, living soul. They're trying to highlight that word is not the same one that's used. The word that's used there for Adam became a living being or a living creature is the same one used of the creatures God's made otherwise. Okay? The creatures that crawl on the ground and the creatures that live in the sea and in the air and all that stuff. So it's that. He's become a living being now. So Adam's a living being. But God doesn't breathe life into anything else. So what is entailed, I'm actually asking, it's not rhetorical. So what is entailed in the breath of life that makes humanity different? Soul. Wow. So then humanity is not human without a soul. Okay, so you got to have a soul to be a human person. Yeah?
Yes.
What's the soul? Breath of life. So God breathes the breath of life in, that's the depositing of the soul. Would it at least include it?
Yeah.
She's looking at me like, stop asking me questions.
Yeah, I was like, why are you looking at me?
She's making good comments, and then I ask a follow-up, and she's like, no, ask someone else. Okay. It's good though. You're on the right track. So then let me ask it this way. What happens to the human person if you try and, fancy words here, rend asunder, pull apart the body and the soul? Death, perhaps?
Like the physical body doesn't have like life anymore as a human member?
Doesn't have life so it ceases to be human. So it is impossible to be human and be a disembodied soul.
I'm having a hard time picturing this. So
Again, she's like, yeah, just don't ask me a question and follow up. As far as Hobbes is concerned, you're right on it. Absolutely. To not have one of the two is to not be human. Because to be human, you have to have both. Okay? So hold on. Without both, you're not human. All right, so now natural follow-up question. What happens when people die? Soul leaves the body?
so they're not human.
Ruh-roh. But the thing that made Adam human and alive was having the body and the soul. Aha. Okay, this is where 1 Corinthians 15 comes in really heavy. Because Paul's point is, in that transition, right? You go from this body to new body that is fit for eternity. Yes? Okay. So what is it to be human? Thomas Hobbes. Humanity for Hobbes is body and soul. It is both. And you have to have both for Hobbes. You cannot have one without the other. They go together, if we're talking about human beings. To clarify, Hobbes says humanity is not a body with a soul. It is not a soul with a body. It is a body and a soul. It is also not a soul in a body. Because that's too Greek and sort of entrapment of the soul sort of stuff. And no, that doesn't work. It's not. Okay? So he articulates this. It has to be an integrated whole. It cannot be parts put together. Are you with me? Okay. Let me do it this way. If you took blue and yellow paints and you mix them, what do you get? Green. That's not humanity. Humanity is not this part and that part, and you mix it together and you get something on the other end. That's not what Hobbes is articulating. This isn't like mixing colors or creating some new chemical solution by putting more than one chemical compound together. Okay? Does that make sense?
Is it like co-dominant alleles? Like relational? Like sprinkling chickens?
No, because those come from separate places. For Hobbes, they don't come from separate places. They're integrated all the time. You don't have a body without a soul, and you don't have a soul without a body. They go together. Hobbes says you can't have a body without a soul, and you can't have a soul without a body. The 1 Corinthians 15 thing is absolutely necessary. You have to transition from one body to the next body. However that looks, takes place, etc. What you cannot have for Thomas Hobbes is some period of time where humanity exists without one of the two. God's not holding souls in heaven waiting to deposit them in bodies as those are conceived. That's not how that works. It's always an integrated whole. Both parts, I shouldn't even say it that way. It's always an integrated whole. In fact, he goes on to say this. The soul is material. Hobbes is not only a nominalist, he's a materialist. He believes this. Every substance that exists is material or is materially existent. Incorporeal substances, non-bodied, non-materialed substances don't exist. It's nonsense. You can't do that. If you're talking about a substance, it has to have a material. It does. It's just the way things are. So, for example, God is a material being. God's material is just special. Because God. So God has a kind of material. It's a kind of material we call spirit. Which for Hobbes is different than the soul. Okay? So God's material is still a material. It's just a different kind of material. It's an eternal kind of material. It's a transcendent kind of material. So too the human person is material. The body, this dust. The soul, transcendent. But humanity is an integration of what is both immanent and transcendent. Follow me here. And you don't have humanity unless you have that integration. Humanity is a whole, integrated and complete, and you need body and soul. We can talk about the body and we can talk about the soul. We can even think about the body without the soul. We can think about the soul without the body, but it doesn't mean that we can actually separate the two of them. Right? We can talk about being ill and how it affects the body, but Hobbes' argument is there is still an impact on the soul because what happens to the body affects the soul. Let's just look at it this way. What happens to the brain affects the mind. And likewise, the other way around. Heart and emotion. Brain and mind, intelligence, intellect, IQ. Heart and emotion, EQ. Our intuition, the way something feels. That visceral gut or core reaction we have when something feels off. He says that's part of it. We feel it physically because the soul is interwoven in our material. Spinoza, Descartes, Aristotle, Plato, a lot of the Stoics talk about the soul and the mind as existing absent from the body. Hobbes says, no way, not possible. It's nonsense. The human mind must exist within the totality of what it is to be human, and a human existence is a material existence. Because for that very reason. If human existence wasn't a material existence, they wouldn't be stomping on the ceiling. Right? Be like Casper. We just move through stuff. Because, okay, maybe. Might make life a little tricky.
Like,
You want to talk about not touching stuff?
Oh. Well,
Sorry,
just
dude.
Go through doors.
Right. You're passing through, not touching it.
then would you go through the floor?
Mind-boggling.
Turn it on and off.
Well, you just float, which
You could go control your
technically, mathematically speaking,
Hey, no.
we're
We're
sort of
not-
kind of floating our,
Stop,
as
stop,
it is.
Stop. No, no.
Walking on friction, people.
I don't like that.
Okay.
What the world are you?
They're fixing the roof, please.
They seem like they're fake doing something up there, just like giving the saw going, oh yeah, thank you.
Okay. Hobbes says the human mind or the human soul has to exist within the totality of what it is to be human. And so the mind or the soul is contained within the matter that makes up the human person. And so you can't rend the two asunder. You can't pull them apart. Which is why, for Hobbes, it's so necessary that Paul has 1 Corinthians 15. Because for Hobbes, it seems then, the process of death isn't pulling the two apart. It's transforming the body to be better fit for something transcendent with the eternality of the soul. Does that make sense? But humanity is not intended ever in any of its existence to be disembodied. Go ahead.
So if we're not intended to be disembodied, then, you know, we've talked about in your New Testament survey that, like, after you're dead, you're just chilling until God comes back, right?
Well, so here's where we got to talk through the intermediate state stuff. When you die, there's a handful of ideas, right? One of those ideas is you go straight to your eternal destination, heaven or hell. We're talking within Christianity, by the way. Okay. One of those ideas is you go to a holding tank, Hades, Sheol, the grave. And then from there, at the end of all things, you get parsed out to paradise or punishment. Right? The question Hobbes is seeking to answer, I think, is, well, I think the question that's raised in what Hobbes is discussing is when you make that transition to, let's say, the holding tank before your eternal destination, right, your final one, do you have a body? And Hobbes says, yes, you do. It's a body that's better fit for the new environment, a timeless, right, new kind of material. It's not dust anymore. It's a new kind of thing, but it's still a material thing. Whereas others might argue that that doesn't happen until the end of all things. Tracking with me on that? Hobbes says you can't. You can't have soul and not body.
Would you be conscious in this Hades place? Would you know, or would you just be chilling? Like,
Well,
dead?
again, two ideas. One, not conscious of it would mean there's a kind of sleep, soul sleep that happens. Two, within that idea, you're not conscious of it because it's outside of time. And so you just go from now to eternal destination. Because time doesn't factor, right? So it's just zip, done, whatever that is, right? And that could include things like the Catholic teaching on purgatory, for example. How much time are you going to spend in purgatory? Well, you may be conscious of all of the time in the world you spend in purgatory. On the other hand, you might metaphorically blink and it's over. Okay. The other idea is you are conscious of it, but the same things about time still apply. You're conscious of it and you're aware that, oh, wait, I went, I chilled, I blinked. Now I'm not chilling anymore. I'm with God where I'm supposed to be. Or I'm, well, not, or one of the two. Yeah. And you're aware of what has happened, but time may or may not actually apply to you. And the answer is, Hobbes doesn't entertain that question. The church, big C, capital Christian church, global Christianity, right, has answers all over that spectrum from all over the place and from a variety of different scriptures. Paul says to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. Paul's also the guy who says you got to have a resurrection body. Well, it's both, right? So there's none of this is clear because here's the deal. To date, well, I'll put it this way. To date, we have not had people go through that experience and then come back and explain it to us. I mean, Jesus doesn't explain that. He explains a lot of other stuff, but he doesn't explain that. We've not had people go through that and explain it to us. And if they claimed that they did go through it and then they came back and explained it to us, we haven't believed them as human persons in the first place. We've typically written those individuals off as your cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. So no. Right? These near-death stories and I saw the light and whatever, typically we don't take that stuff very seriously. So the answer is,
Like, should we take it seriously or like no? Or is it
I don't think it would hurt you to take it more seriously than we do. There's severe caution in not taking it too seriously. Don't get yourself wrapped around the axle on it. On the other hand, it may not be bad to take seriously people's accounts of like near death or I died and came back sorts of stories, right? Because we don't know. Hobbes's point here is everything has to have a material composition. You can't have a thing, an actual substantive thing, without some sort of material to go with it. Otherwise, you don't have a thing to talk about, literally. If there's no material for the stool, then you literally have no thing. You got nothing. You have to have material composition. When it comes to human persons, it's complicated because we are a material thing, but some facet of our material makeup is already fit the soul for this transcendency and this eternality. The rest of us got to catch up or be transformed. Okay? Okay. Questions, concerns? Good. You have the rest of your time to work on your stuff, okay? And we'll pick up there tomorrow.